topic is about simple interest rate and compound interest rate. We want to know the difference between simple interest rate and compound interest rate. So this is very important that we understand these concepts because in finance such things really matter a lot, and if you learn these concepts then you are able to understand different further studies that you conduct in the subject of finance. So firstly, the simple interest rate is simply anything that is charged on the principal amount borrowed or lent. So if you have a certain amount that you borrow from somebody, and the interest rate that has been decided between you two would be applied on the amount for a couple of years that are mentioned in that particular agreement. On the other hand, compound interest rate is actually a broader concept, that is when the interest rate is applied on the amount of principal as well as the amount of interest that has been charged or lent, or in that particular year if it is lent or borrowed, so it is charged on the principal amount as well as the interest rate. So simply we can call compound interest rate as interest on interest. So that is the way the society works, and sometimes we can call it as an evil because compound interest rate creates a burden for the people that have borrowed the money and are going to have to pay back that money in the future. The formula for simple interest rate is quite simple, as it is shown in this particular slide. So the simple interest rate can be calculated by having this formula: simple interest rate is equals to principal amount multiplied by the interest rate per period multiplied by the number of time periods. So whatever amount you have borrowed multiplied by the interest rate that has been agreed upon and the number of years. So this is a simple example of simple interest rate. Assume that you have deposited $1,000 in an account earning 7% simple interest rate for 2 years. What is the accumulated interest at the end of second year? So if you want to calculate this amount, we will be following the simple formula that we learned in the previous slide. So it is simple interest rate is equals to principal amount at time 0. If you notice, it is 0 or O, that shows that the time period has been 0 or it is current time period. This particular year is considered as P naught, multiplied by the interest rate that has been given in this scenario multiplied by the number of years. So $1,000 as deposited multiplied by the 0.07, that is showing the percentage interest, multiplied by 2, that was the number of years. So we want to know what has been the final amount, that is $140. So this is the simple interest that has been earned by depositing $1,000 for 7% for 2 years time period. So generally we will get our principal amount as well as the interest. So the formula has been concluded by finding out the future value. Future value is something that you earn at a future date after investing the present amount of money for some particular time period. So in this case, the principal amount plus the simple interest rate would become the future value. The future value is the value at some future time of a present amount of money or a series of payments evaluated at a given interest rate. So in this case, if we add the principal amount of 1,000 with the simple interest that has been earned of $140, it becomes $1,140. What is the present value of the previous problem? So if we want to know the present value, so whenever you draw a timeline for time value of money questions, you know the present value is the current time period. For suppose if it is the current year is 2017, then that would be the present value. If you want to determine it for 2019, then that would be a future value. So the present value of the previous question was $1,000 that had been originally deposited. So the present value is the current value of future amount of money or a series of payments evaluated at a given interest rate. So now we have learned the concepts of simple interest rate, as well as within that we have understood what present values and future values mean. So a very important principle that has to be understood in this situation is that the cash flows at different points in time cannot be compared and aggregated because there is the concept of inflation, so the purchasing power of value, money changes, so we cannot compare values at different time periods. That is why we have to bring all the cash flows or the amounts to the same point in time in order to properly compare and understand whether there have been increases or there were some decreases to the cash value. Now we understand the concept of compound interest rate. The formula is quite different. The formula that has been applied over here is uh, a bit different. So here you can see a timeline. So at time 0, that is the current time period, it shows $1,000. So it is the present value. We want to determine the future value after 2 years at 7% interest rate. The compound interest rates formula is a bit different, where the future value is equals to the principal amount bracket open 1 plus I bracket close power 1. So it represents that the within the bracket the original amount as well as on interest, the interest will be charged, as the concept of compound interest is interest on interest. So $1,000 multiplied by 1.07, that is the interest rate. So for the first year, if we do not even show the value of 1, that is understood that this has been conducted for 1 year, so the value becomes 1070. So it shows that on in compound interest we have earned $70 interest on our initial deposit of $1,000 over the first year. So in this case, this is the same amount of interest you would have earned in the simple interest, because on the first year there has been only interest earned, so in the next year the interest on interest concept will be applied. So in the previous example, if you remember, the simple interest rate value was 1140. Let's see whether this would be increasing in compound interest or not. So for the second year, if you see the second part of the question, future value 2 is showing that in this case, not only just for 1 year, but for 2 years, the value has been calculated. So it is 1.07 power 2. It increases to 1144.90, which is actually greater than the previous simple interest rate value by around $4.90. This is a very minimal amount over here because we are just understanding the concepts of simple interest and compound interest. But later on, if you increase the number of years, increase the amount of interest, that would be having a huge impact, and there would be a huge difference in the answers that you get for a simple interest and for a compound interest. So this is the situation, and normally these questions are not only solved by one particular technique. Like for suppose we have some formulas that are given in the above upper portion of the slide. This shows that you have future value 1. For this particular formula, the power will be 1. If future value 2, so the power will be for 2 years. And generally there is another way of solving these questions through the future value of interest factor tables. So these are mostly given on the at the end of the finance books of Gitman, Van Horn, and several other authors. So these are also helpful for students to avoid calculation mistakes, so they can see the values from the tabular answers that are given at the end of the book. So let's see our own example. For 7% at 2 years, the value is in red color 1.145. So if you multiply it by $1,000, you get $111.45. That was exactly precisely our answer, almost rounded off, but it shows that there is a way of calculating such questions and getting your final answer through rounding off. And this is also a very good way of finding whether you have earned a profit or made a loss by avoiding calculation errors. Thank you. I hope you have understood some con easy concepts related to simple interest rate and compound interest rate. I am hoping for your requests on future videos, and hopefully we will be learning a lot of new things and new ideas. Kindly comment, like, and subscribe my channel. I'm a new YouTuber and I'm hoping for full support from your side so that my channel can be up and running and functional. Thank you.